In this video, we should be heading back in time to the rise of the beaky marine. Greetings, Twiglets. This year, Warhammer 40k turns 35, and I turn... never mind. Needless to say, the Old Hammer community is still thriving. There are trading groups on Facebook, eBay is full of listings aimed at the collector market, and we've just had the Age of Darkness set for Horus Heresy, which leans heavily on the vibe of the original edition. The first edition, or what is now just known as Warhammer 40,000, did not start with a big box of miniatures like all of its subsequent editions, but instead with this chunky book full of rules, lore, scenarios and everything needed to make an army list. Imagine getting all that in one tome today. Oh, Kings of War, how you tempt me. My first voiceover for this piece was a long rambling account of my Old Hammer experiences, back when it was New Hammer, or just Hammer. Anyways, you don't want to hear me waffle on about my nostalgia, you want to see me paint some minis, so let's go for a rummage and see what relics we can find. Just an FYI, I have never filmed a mini painting video before, so there may be some blurry shots from struggling to balance all the tasks by myself. Give me a pile of terrain and I'll twat Blue Pete around the head with it, but ask me to film a painting video? Well, here we go. I managed to grab enough bits for 10 plastic beaky marines, an old Dreadnought and a metal Terminator captain. Just an immature aside, when I was typing this up I accidentally typed Faptin, and I now have a new insult to deploy. Also, for the sake of transparency, my Rhino here is a 3D printed one, but damn, it is pretty spot on to the original. I know some layer lines are visible, but this was actually an early test print, and I could probably improve it considerably now that I am more au fait with 3D printing. I know there is a lot of controversy around 3D printing whole miniatures, but if it's a long out of production model and nobody is making money out of it, then personally I don't see how it's impacting on Games Workshop in any practical way. So, the Dreadnought is stuck onto an era-appropriate 40mm base, which was the style at the time. Yes, in the Rogue Trader era you could have any round base size you wanted, so long as it was 25mm. I recall seeing a few people using them without a base at all, which, given how top-heavy the model is, screams a degree of madness and optimism suitable only for those worshipping the ruinous powers. So I made up 2 5-man tactical squads with a Terminator captain, Rhino and this Dreadnought. Given the loadouts, it should all be legal to play in 9th edition, or indeed any edition of the game should I be so inclined. Actually, I could probably field them in Heresy too. I'm giving the squads virtually identical loadouts, and I'm using these Mark 7 torsos for the sergeants to make sure they stand out a bit more. These were a £4 deal on eBay, which I was quite pleased with. Also, I want a flamer in each unit, but I could only find the one. However, I have this Space Marine scout arm with a close match for the shoulder pads and a Forge World flamer and arm, which fits the aesthetic quite well with 1 or 2 modifications. Also, I don't have any ranged weapons or even holstered weapons for the sergeants, so I gave one a 2nd edition bolt gun and the other a more modern bolt pistol that fits in with the scale and the aesthetic. So, Blood Angels it is then. So I got Azure Wretch to give the models a blast of High Coat White primer. I came in with Scale 75 Ink Tense Red. The ink is so vibrant that it may have burnt my retina, which was the style at the time. It is easy to deride the lack of detail on these models, but it makes for a quick highlighting session, and anyone who knows me knows how much I hate doing edge highlighting. It's tempting to dry brush everything, but I'm going to try some airbrush blending, taking the light red to orange. It's not fancy, but then these minis were never meant to be fancy. The areas that are going to be silver get painted in black, and then after the silver, those parts get a coat of Administratum grey contrast paint. Then a light dry brush of a lighter silver over the gun to give it that used, scuffed up look, and a recess shade with Blood Angels red contrast paint. Yellow was a very popular accent colour with Blood Angels, and here you can see I've painted the Power Fist yellow, which was the style at the time. Next, the captain needs a bit of extra attention. While this is a Rogue Trader era mini, it came out a couple of years after the initial launch, when they had the design style pretty much sorted. You can see far finer details on him, and they will need a bit more work. The model itself has been rattling around loose with other models for decades, so it's pretty beat up, but I can work with it. I just want to say how much I love this model. It's not just a nostalgia thing, this dude has so much character. Were it not for 3 decades of scale creep, I would happily have this chap at the head of my Ultramarines or Death Watch. I would love to have a load more of this model to paint in different chapter or legion colours. This guy to me is the archetypal Space Marine HQ mini. This dude looks badass, stoic, pragmatic. He has breathing apparatus, a freaking grenade launcher on his Power Fist, and he knows cloaks and tabards are just going to get in the way, which was the style at the time. The armour gets the same treatment as the plastic beakies, with orange highlights and Blood Angels red as a recess shade. The extra filigree gets a rich yellow colour over a brushed on base coat of Vallejo grey primer, because yellow is a bugger to paint. This is followed by Iandan yellow to shade them, such as the wings on his chest and the skulls. His Stormbard casing gets a yellow coat with black details, and then there is just his face and hair. He's a Blood Angel, so bleached blonde hair and pale skin are a natural choice. As I progressed, I thought there was maybe too much yellow, so some of the yellow details got a gold repaint. Now, for the vehicles. I follow the same steps for the Dreadnought, the main body and armour plates getting the Inktense red treatment with orange highlights, but there is a lot more detail on the areas that are going to be metal. A few flashes of yellow in there will break up the red, then it gets the same treatment as the marine weapons. The Dreadnought eyes, being larger and more defined, get a dark green coat. For the Rhino, it was pretty much the same thing, red with orange blending for the highlights, black for going under silver and on the doors, recess shade of Blood Angels contrast paint, and a basic highlight on the doors of Thunderhawk blue. That is my go-to for highlighting black on Imperial armour. With the Rhino pretty much done, it's time to move on to the penultimate step. Decals. Transfers or decals used to be a pain in many holes, but I recommend grabbing these. Decal Fixer and Decal Softener from Green Stuff World. Other brands are available, but these are the ones I have and I like them. So you just soak the transfer in water as per usual and paint some of the Decal Fixer where you want it to go. Once it's ready, you slide it onto the surface, get it into position and dab off any excess liquid. I use cotton buds, but a soft brush or tissue works too. Then go over it with some decal softener and gently tease out any folds or creases before dabbing off any excess. Once that is done, put a layer of decal fixer over it and then give it time to dry. Fun fact about Rogue Trader era basing. It didn't start with ubiquitous goblin green over sand with a dry brush of Bad Moon Yellow, which was essentially a meme for the entire 1990s. It's amazing how much of the entire galaxy was covered in grass. Hell, even the underhive of Necromunda seemed to have a lush, meadowy vibe. No, the early basing examples seem more like the examples of today. Black or brown base rims with an earthy or deserty theme on top. I think I'm going to go for a mix of the two styles. My thing is, whichever of my armies it is, that I keep my base rims black. Then I'm going to go in with the Geek Gaming Scenics basing glue and give it a dunk in my herbal flock mixture. It's actually just a tub of mixed herbs. Not only does this keep with the nostalgia vibe, but it also matches my new gaming mat and forest terrain, the first two videos of which are already on the channel, so go have a look if you like what you see. Once it has been dipped and the excess shaken off, I leave it to dry for an hour and then come in with my water PVA dish soap mix using a pipette, and I soak it into that, and that seals it. Not only does this protect the flocking, it also seals in the scent from the herbs, making you less inclined to lick them. I then add some Army Painter Ash ground flock to cover up any patchy areas on the base where the base itself might shine through. And that is pretty much it. A small force of rogue trader blood angels, as legal to use in 9th edition as in 1st. So yeah, minus the Rhino, that's a 30+ year old army painted in a few hours, which was the style at the time. I'll leave you with some cool shots of the finished force, but first I'd just like to ask you to help us grow the channel by liking, subscribing and sharing this video, and I will catch you all next time.